Our fathers told this story only in the lowest voice, only when the fire had burned down to ash and the children were certain to be asleep. They said it was the night the giants wept. They said it was the night the sky leaned close enough to listen, and the earth held its breath until the dawn. We were small then, but we remember. We remember because some things, once seen, cannot be unseen, and some sounds, once heard, never leave the bone. There was a man among us called Enoch. He was not like the rest of us. He walked with the living God, and when he passed through our camps the dogs would not bark and the goats would not bleat, as if every creature understood that something larger than a man was passing through. His eyes carried a weight we could not look into for long. When he spoke, his words came slowly, as if every syllable had been drawn up from a deep well that no other mouth could reach. We did not love him. Love was too small a word. We feared him, the way you fear the thing that stands between you and a danger you cannot name. The watchers had come down from the holy mountain long before, in the years of our grandfathers' grandfathers. They had taken our daughters, and from those unions had come the giants, the Nephilim, who consumed our harvests in a single afternoon and our flocks in a single night. The watchers had taught the smiths to forge swords from iron pulled out of the bones of the earth. They had taught the women to paint their eyes and to hide their thoughts. They had taught the children to count the stars not in wonder, but in greed. And we had wept, because we had not known that the gates of heaven could open downward as well as upward, and we had not known that the price of the knowledge they brought would be paid in the blood of our sons. Then came the night. It began with a stillness. Not silence, because silence is empty, but a stillness that pressed against the chest like a hand. The dogs lay flat in the dust and would not rise. The birds, which had been roosting in the cedars, fell quiet in the middle of their evening calls. The river outside our settlement, which always murmured against the smooth stones, lost its voice. We stepped out of our tents and looked at the sky, and the sky was waiting. They came down the slope like shadows that had learned to walk upright. Tall as 4 men stacked one upon the other, their skin the color of old ash, their eyes the color of a knife held under cold moonlight. They had been beautiful once, our grandmothers had told us. Beautiful enough to seduce the daughters of Adam. But that beauty had been burned out of them by what they had become, and now they wore their faces like masks that no longer fit. Some say their hair still moved with a wind that we could not feel, as if the air of heaven still passed through it long after they had left heaven behind. There were many of them. We had never counted them all in one place. They came not as conquerors, but as men who have heard the verdict and are walking to the place of execution. Their heads were bowed. Their hands were empty. The chiefs walked at the front, the ones whose names our mothers refused to speak aloud. Azazel, who had taught the forging of weapons. Shemaiah, who had led the others down from the mountain of God. Barachel, who had taught the reading of lightning. Kokabel, who had stolen the secret of the signs of the stars. Their footsteps were heavy. The ground did not crack beneath them, but it sighed. They were coming for Enoch. We hid the children inside the tents. We pressed our backs against the walls of our dwellings. We watched through the gaps in the goatskin, and we held our breath, because we knew that the watchers had never come to a human dwelling on foot before. They had always ridden the storm, or appeared in the smoke of the morning, or descended in the fire of the noonday sun. To see them walking on the earth, the way a man walks when he has been ordered to walk, was a thing more terrible than any battle our grandfathers had ever fought. Enoch was sitting outside his tent. He had been writing on a piece of polished wood with a stylus of bone. When the watchers approached, he did not rise. He set his stylus down. He folded his hands. He waited. The first of them, Shemaiah, knelt. We saw it with our own eyes. The leader of those who had fallen, the one who had taught his brothers to break the covenant, knelt before a small man sitting on a stone. The others knelt behind him. The valley filled with the sound of their kneeling, a deep, slow groan of immense bodies lowering themselves to the earth, and the earth taking on their weight. Dust rose around their knees in soft, slow clouds, and the dust did not settle for a long time. Then they begged. We could not hear all their words. The wind carried only fragments to us. But we heard enough. We heard the word forgiveness, spoken in a voice that did not know how to shape it. We heard the word mercy, spoken in a voice that had once spoken curses. We heard the word please, And the word please from the mouth of a watcher is a thing that breaks something inside the listener that cannot ever be repaired. They wept. We had not known they could weep. The tears fell down their ash-gray faces and struck the dust, and where the tears fell, the dust hissed like water on hot iron, and a faint steam rose from the ground. They had heard the judgment. Somehow, through means we did not understand, the verdict of heaven had reached them, and they knew what was coming. The pit, the chains, the darkness, the long age of waiting beneath the roots of the earth until the day when the final fire would come. They had ruled for centuries. They had drunk the wine of the world. And now they begged a small man with ink on his fingers to carry their plea upward, to the throne they had abandoned, to the Father they had betrayed. Enoch listened. He did not interrupt. He let them speak until they had nothing left to say. Then he rose, and he bowed his head, and he said only this, "I will go." And he went. We did not see how he ascended. Some say a chariot came for him, drawn by creatures with too many wings. Some say he simply walked into a place that none of us could see and was gone. The watchers remained in the valley. They did not stand. They knelt for hours, for a day, for 2 days. They knelt while the sun rose and set. They knelt while the children we had hidden began to cry quietly inside the tents. They knelt while the river beside our settlement, having recovered its voice, ran past them and did not dare to splash. We watched. We could not look away. We could not eat. We could not sleep. When Enoch returned, the air around him was wrong. It was too thin. It was too bright. It hurt our eyes to look at him directly. He came down the slope alone, and he walked to the place where the watchers knelt, and he stopped before them. He did not sit. He did not look kindly at them. He looked at them the way a man looks at something that has already been decided, and whose deciding he is not at liberty to undo. He raised his voice, because the message was not his own. He said, "I have been to the throne. I have placed your petition before the Holy One. I have spoken your names, and your tears, and your sorrow, and I have been sent back with the answer. The answer is no. There will be no peace for you. There will be no mercy. The chains are already forged. The pit is already opened. You shall not return to the heaven you abandoned, neither now, nor in the age that is coming, nor in any age that follows. You shall watch the destruction of your sons. You shall hear the screams of the Nephilim as the flood takes them, and you shall not be able to close your ears. You shall be bound until the great day of judgment, and on that day you shall be cast into the fire that has no shore. This is the word of the Lord, and it cannot be unspoken." The silence that followed was the silence we had felt before, but deeper, the kind of silence that lives at the bottom of a well that has never been opened. The watchers did not cry out. They did not rage. They did not curse Enoch, though we had expected them to. They simply lowered their faces further toward the dust. One of them, we think it was Azazel, pressed his forehead against the ground and remained there motionless for so long that we thought he had turned to stone. Perhaps in some way he had. And then, slowly, the chains came. We did not see who brought them. We did not see hands. But we saw the links forming in the air, dark as the inside of a closed mouth, and we saw them settling around the wrists and the necks and the ankles of the watchers, and the metal did not clang, because it was not metal as we knew metal. It made no sound at all. The absence of sound was worse than any clang would have been. We watched as the great ones who had ruled the earth were led away into the deep places, into the cracks of the mountains, into the dark beneath the dark. Azazel was taken to a place called Dudiel in the wilderness, and there he was bound beneath sharp and jagged stones, and the sand was piled upon him, and the darkness was set against his face forever. The others were scattered, each to his own pit, each to his own age of waiting. The valley emptied. The dust that had risen during the kneeling settled at last. Enoch turned and walked back to his tent. He picked up his stylus. He began to write again. He did not speak of what he had seen. He did not weep. We think now, looking back from the long years, that he had wept already in the place we could not follow him to, and that he had no tears left for the country of dust. We tell this story now in the lowest voice, when the fire has burned down to ash, when the children are certain to be asleep. We tell it because it must be told. We tell it because the watchers are still beneath the earth, and the great day has not yet come, and the fire that has no shore is still waiting. And there is a thing that you should know, you who hear this story in the ages that have come after ours. Mercy is not owed. It is given. And when it is refused at the throne, even the mighty kneel in the dust, and even the dust is afraid.